Today I want to complete laying out 5 seasons of the Rings of Power. Hi, now in part 1 of my video I released yesterday, I was therapeutically breaking down how I would pace and set out 5 seasons for the Rings of Power. Using the title Rings of Power, I got no issue with that. It's just the way they've managed it and timed everything. And I found that the video was a bit longer than I intended it to be, so I only really covered how I would have done season 1. So in this video, I'm just going to sort of skim through seasons 2, 3, 4 and 5 to complete the timeline as laid out in Appendix B of The Return of the King, our source material. Now, season 2 covers, again, sort of 750 years. So we need to take into account that some characters are only going to be in one episode as time passes, and we keep to the theme, the main theme of mortality and sort of entropy, really. So we start the season with Sauron established in Mordor, having sort of stirred and created a bit of a fuss in season 1 and giving our heroes victories. Sauron decides to sort of set up his own kingdom in the same way that the elves are doing, etc., etc., the Númenóreans. Sauron does the same. He establishes a kingdom and considers how or what it is he is going to do now that sort of he has opposition and sort of wants to dominate. Moving forward, once we've got this sort of premise set for season 2, we have our heroes sort of, okay, there's no signs of the evil of Sauron, so they can leave Eriador and start scouting out other parts of Middle-earth for not just signs of the enemy, but also for scouting out sort of future kingdoms. As it is well known, Galadriel and Celeborn set out from Lindon to create a kingdom to rule of their own. And this is one of those things that you can serve, preempt a little bit, pay off by our heroes finding locations as they are hunting orcs and trolls and word of Sauron. So obviously Sauron comes up with a plan and brings out his fair form and sort of comes to Eriador and seeks to make friendships and to seduce the elves. Season 2 has to be about politics. If you want to do a version of Game of Thrones within Middle-earth, this is the season to do that. You have the overtures that are made to Gil-galad, to the elven nobles, Elrond, Círdan, Celeborn and Galadriel. I just want to help. There's things, great things we could achieve if we lay aside our enmities. I'm a changed man. How you play this, there's some scope for generating stories that do not break the law, but make more of a, oh well, Sauron makes some pitches and it is refused. I mean, obviously, everyone is sensible enough to go, no, except for Celebrimbor in Eregion, who goes, well, yeah, sounds legit to me. Let's see what we can do. Now, while we have our story with our heroes scouting, Adar and the orcs, those that are now loyal to Sauron, they're staying away from Eriador. They've been driven out from there. They've established Mordor. However, they start looking to other aspects of Middle Earth, like the western coast, and sort of we can have some conflicts that take place without sort of Numenor and Eriador really being in contact with each other, so that there are some battles where the orcs fight Numenor as they establish permanent havens in Middle Earth. The last part of the season really is about the creation of the rings, which, you know, the show is called The Rings of Power. It's the Lord of the Rings. This is the bit that needs defining and really bringing about why elves and men look at mortality or the passage of time the way they do, and why the rings are created. So in the year 1500 we have the forging of the Rings of Power, and then obviously Sauron returns to Mordor and Sauron forges the One Ring. Gotcha, I was lying, I am evil incarnate. And obviously the elves realise this, and it's just like, oh no, what have we done, etc., etc. The creation of the One Ring is the finale for season 2. Season 2 is about setting up Sauron and his power base, and the coming conflicts that have to now occur in seasons 3, 4, and 5, and what we see in Lord of the Rings. So season 3, we start off with the War of Elves and Sauron, the hiding of the Elven Rings. Remember, Sauron has never touched them and never lays his hands on them. The elves are wise, the other rings, that's another matter. But we have war. And Sauron lays Eregion to waste. I mean, we pretty much get the death of Celebrimbor, and Sauron is running rampant over Eriador. He's in a position of strength, and we still don't really have this connection tying the Númenórean forces and the Eriador forces in any sort of alliance. However, and this is again where we have our heroes, we have them working. We have Celebrian do what Galadriel did, or the Rings of Power version of Galadriel did, by bringing Númenor to war. We let Celebrian do this. It's not a massive breaking of law. Either way, the Númenórean forces arrive at Lindon. They come to help Gil-galad, and they set out from Lindon to match Sauron and his armies in Eriador and defeat him. They drive him from Eriador, and there is peace. Now, Númenor has come to support Eriador. They've already been establishing permanent havens in other areas of Middle-earth, and here we get the chance to bring everyone up to speed. They're just like, well, yeah, it's like while Sauron was lying to you here, he was expanding in the south. we need to do something about this. Oh, it's a good job you're here. Men are here. You've got these established things. We can sort of. What's Sauron doing? Well, he's retreated to Mordor. And while everyone's patting themselves on the back and order is being re-established in Middle-earth, Sauron makes overtures east of Mordor to gain new allies. And again, we have room for some creative writing to bring in new characters, new things that have very basic information. Also, as we lead towards the finale for this season, trouble starts to grow in Numenor. Again, we can go. We drawn back to the different perceptions on mortality. We go back to season 1 when Elros chooses to be mortal and Elrond chooses to be immortal. And now, with the passage of time, the Númenóreans are starting to question the choice of Elros. So that's the end of season 3. We move into season 4, and really this is where Numenor starts to eat at itself. There's rebellion and division in Numenor. And also the really interesting thing to bring into season 4 to show growth and expansion of power regarding Sauron, the Nazgûl first appear, the Black Riders. Again, you keep your heroes going with let's say, can have some seemingly inconsequential adventures, some quests. Rumour. Interestingly, in the year 2350, Pelargir is built, the chief haven of the faithful Númenóreans. Now this is what they're planning to do for the finale episode of season 1 of Rings of Power. And this should be like a season 4 event if you keep into a timeline. In my opinion, it is just my opinion. And then finally, we have that sort of what the trouble that's been brewing in Numenor for centuries takes hold, as we have a new king who bucks the trend or bucks the fashion of having an elven name and elven roots, and uses a Númenórean name, and Numenor is changed. Again, this is something we've seen sort of, one of the things we've seen from the get-go of Numenor in Rings of Power, rather than see it happen. And again, this is because of the underlying theme of the Second Age, which is begrudging mortality, or being sort of sad about mortality, as the elves, like in the way the elves view it, why the elves want to preserve what they build. They see everything age and wither and erode, including men. I mean, it's, you keep these perspectives, because this is why Numenor does what it does, and why Sauron is able to manipulate them, and why everything sort of goes as bad as it does. So we get to season 5. I mean, this is it. This is your finale season. This is where it all leads up to what we know to be like the opening scene of the Fellowship of the Ring, the retelling of what has gone before. So civil war in Numenor, and then Ar-Pharazôn. Ar-Pharazôn is an incredible character. We've just seen glimpses of motivations and what he wants to do in the Amazon Rings of Power show. In season 5, we get to see him and see what he actually does. So by now, there's been this standoff, or some, I don't know, let's say some minor skirmishes with forces from Mordor and our allied sort of forces in Middle-earth. For Ar-Pharazôn and the Númenóreans, this isn't enough. It's time to deal with Sauron. So they sail to Middle-earth. Massive, massive army. Rock up to Mordor to pick a fight. Massive, massive potential for a battle on a scale of, like in Return of the King. But interestingly enough, Sauron is just like, do you know what? We might actually lose. I'll surrender. So there's no big battle. I mean, it's just that they rock up and Sauron just like, no, it's okay, I surrender. Sauron is then taken prisoner by Ar-Pharazôn back to Númenor, and within a few years, Sauron proves to be the most valued and trusted advisor to Ar-Pharazôn. Just like, what? Why would you trust this guy? And again, going back to season 2, we see how manipulative and clever and charismatic Sauron is, and how he plays the Númenóreans perfectly. Because, believe it or not, Sauron convinces Ar-Pharazôn to build up Númenor's forces and to attack Valinor. It's just like, you want immortality? You go take it. You're a king. Go take your immortality from the gods. You're so powerful. All these things you have built and that. You sail to Valinor and destroy them and take what is yours. Oh, okay. That sounds like a good idea. Sauron does not go with Ar-Pharazôn. We assume he's either, I don't know, equivalent of a hand of the king left in charge at Númenor, or he's in Númenor. Maybe he's imprisoned. When Ar-Pharazôn lands west, and obviously we need to sort of remember in the TV show we've had Isildur being distracted from calls from the west. Yeah, it does. Let's just say the Númenóreans have a very bad day. All the forces that go to Valinor, squish, rip, and the gods are pretty pissed off. So they sink Númenor. Sauron, they destroy Sauron on Númenor because they sink it. It's worth noting that the important thing regarding the faithful is this is when Elendil and Isildur and Isildur's brother Anarion basically managed to escape the sinking of Númenor because they are faithful, and they managed to take sort of a remnant of the white tree. This is the white tree that is dying when Gandalf goes to Minas Tirith in Return of the King. They sail to Middle-earth and essentially establish the kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor. The rest of the Númenóreans, goodbye, other than some that are already in Middle-earth, and that's another matter. Again, you can bring in little stories to do with black Númenóreans, evil Númenóreans. It doesn't really matter. Sauron is destroyed. The faithful escape to Middle-earth and establish the kingdoms. There's a lot going on, and visually stunning. You have things that you can really play up and get across the folly of thinking a man can take on a god. Various other bits. So that's kind of like your first half of the final season, and then the second half, Sauron returns to Mordor. While his beautiful form has been destroyed, he is not. Like Gandalf returns as Gandalf the White, Sauron returns. And obviously, we know what he looks like because, most people on the planet, I think, have seen the Lord of the Rings films, even if you haven't read the books. So Sauron is a little bit upset and he attacks Gondor. And now we're moving towards the end phase for the finale. So after the attack on Gondor, everyone sort of goes, oh, we're not having this. So you get the last alliance of men and elves. So this is it. This is the big battle when Elendil and Gil-galad die fighting Sauron. Isildur picking up the broken sword of his father cuts the One Ring from Sauron's hand. Sauron is defeated. Isildur takes the One Ring, and the Nazgul go into hiding. You write that in the way that adheres to the timeline and the events that have gone on. Everyone gets to have their hero moment. Everyone gets drama. Everyone sees the Second Age as it is meant to be. The end. Well, until sort of, the Third Age, and we know what happens in that. So that's a relatively detailed synopsis, projection of how I would have paced and set out 5 seasons for a TV show covering the Second Age of Middle-earth. You can agree or disagree. I'm driven chiefly by what our author wrote. It's there, and there is room to expand and be creative without bringing in ridiculous things like the elves are dying, they need Mithril to save them, or that Galadriel is a monster. Hope you like it. Cheers. It's therapeutic to explore what could have been, what should have been. Do take care. Goodbye.